You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Welcome back to the Asians in Hockey podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Nate Nikau. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got a couple quick requests for you. Producing this podcast takes time, effort, and some money, and I promise you'll never have to pay a subscription fee just to listen to the podcast. But if you'd like to help out with some of the production costs, I now have a way you can do that through buymeacoffee.com. Just visit coffee/AsiansInHockey, that's coff.ee/AsiansInHockey, to make a donation. Also, if you've enjoyed what you've heard from us, I would love it if you could post a quick 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This is honestly the best way to get the word out about the show and to help us cultivate our audience. Thank you so much for your support. Since the hockey season is wrapping up, today's episode is the podcast season finale. I still have some stuff coming out during the off season, but our regular format will be going on break until the fall. As usual, we have 3 periods of hockey talk, and in our first period, we'll talk about the first 3 games of the Calder Cup finals, featuring the Abbotsford Canucks, who have 4 players of Asian descent, Jet Wu, Arshdeep Bains, Jujhar Khaira, and Akito Hirose, along with a head coach and an assistant coach of Asian descent, Manny Malhotra and Harry Mahesh. We'll also have our first ever fan report from friend of the show, Alana Ma, who joined us back in episode 6 to talk about her own journey as captain of the Canadian women's national para ice hockey team. Today, she joins us as an Edmonton Oilers fan, and unfortunately, we recorded the episode between games 5 and 6, so we were still living in a time when the possibility of seeing Connor McDavid lift the cup was within reach. And in the second period, we'll take a look at the career of a young pioneer, the second ever NHL team captain of Asian descent, and the first ever Asian captain of the most storied organization in hockey history, the Montreal Canadiens. I am, of course, referring to the unofficial captain of this podcast, Nick Suzuki. And finally, in the third period, I'll be chatting with one of the biggest PWHL content creators right now, Ava Wood, who posts regular PWHL videos on social media under the handle 365HockeyGirl. It was a really fun conversation, so stay tuned for that. All of that is coming up right after this.
But we're still here, and we're going strong.
It's an exciting time in Asian America. There are more movies, TV shows, books, and music reflecting us than ever. But all of these represent just a small slice of Asian American culture and experiences. So what do? Tell more slices. Asian Americana is a show that explores these slices of distinctly Asian American culture and history. We've talked about how Chinese Americans built California's Sacramento Delta, the art scene turns gallery institution Giant Robot, a play that explores the lost Cambodian pop music of the 60s and 70s, and, of course, boba, just to name a few stories. You can find Asian Americana at asianamericana.com or on your podcast app.
And we're getting tired of proving we belong.
All right, let's drop the puck on today's episode. While the NHL's Stanley Cup final has wrapped up, the AHL's Calder Cup finals are still underway. 3 games down, and our Asian players are still making an impact. Game 1 was a marathon, with Abbotsford pulling out a 4-3 win in double overtime. While none of our Asian players hit the scoresheet, defenders Jet Wu and Akito Hirose logged key minutes on the back end, helping keep things tight through nearly 5 full periods. The Charlotte Checkers answered back in Game 2, edging out a 3-2 overtime victory. Again, Wu and Hirose were steady on defense, while Arshdeep Bains and Jujhar Khaira continued to play in top 6 roles, generating pressure and chances, even though they didn't register any points. Game 3 was a statement win for Abbotsford, who cruised to a 6-1 victory, and this time, our Asian players delivered. Arshdeep Bains scored twice, including a third-period empty netter, and notched 2 assists for a total of 4 points on the night. Both Wu and Hirose contributed with solid defensive play, each finishing +1, as Abbotsford took the series lead. Oh, and before we continue, I do need to mention that Asian centre and Edmonton Oilers prospect William Nicol helped the London Knights win the 2025 Memorial Cup in Rimouski, Quebec. Things haven't fared quite as well for the Oilers NHL team or for our friend Alana Ma, a native of Edmonton, Alberta, who is a lifetime Oilers fan. Her team took the Stanley Cup Final Series all the way to 6 games, but they just couldn't climb out of the hole they ended up in that final game, and Florida skated off with their second Stanley Cup in as many years. But before Game 6, I actually sat down with Alana to talk about her love for the Oilers and a little bit about life as an Asian hockey fan. So we've got a new little segment that I want to play around with a little bit. We'll do a fan report from an Asian fan of a particular NHL or PWHL or even maybe some junior hockey teams. So to kick things off for the fan report section, we are bringing back a friend of the show and a previous guest. You can check out her episode a few episodes back, Alana Ma, who is an Edmonton Oilers fan. Yes. And is coming to us as a fan today, not as like a hockey participant or player. But, you know, so the Oilers are, of course, in the Stanley Cup Finals, and we're recording this the day after a loss that kind of set them back, 3-2 now in the series. So we'll talk a little bit about your history as an Oilers fan, maybe give us some memorable moments, and then we'll transition into how you're feeling now and give us a little update on the team in the more like current or recent history. So I was thinking of asking you how you became an Oilers fan, but you're from Edmonton. That'd be like asking me how I became a Yankees fan, which I don't have a memory of ever becoming a Yankees fan. I was just sort of born into it. But I guess the question I would ask is, do you remember a moment that kind of solidified your fandom? Like, was there something, a memory that you have where like, yes, I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. Like, this is what I can point to.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, like you said, I was definitely born into it. Like, my entire family have been Oilers fans. My grandparents are big sports fans, and they loved the Oilers growing up. So it was always on every Saturday night, right? Hockey Night in Canada. But I still vividly do remember our '06 Cup run, and I think that's probably like the first memory I do have, and just like watching all the games with my family, and obviously that heartbreaking loss. Like, I still remember where I was when they lost then in '06. So hopefully I don't have that feeling again this year. But I definitely just grew up into it with my family. And when I was younger, like, I know the Oilers did a bunch of hospital visits. So when I was, at the rehab hospital or at the hospital in Edmonton, I actually had met a few of them through that way. Cool. It was really cool to finally actually meet them. I think this was around, it was after '06, so it was probably like '07, '08. And then my cousin, actually, she had a wedding here in Calgary, and it just so happened that they were staying at the same hotel as the wedding. So I remember when I was like maybe like 9, I met the entire team at the hotel, and I remember framing all those photos of meeting them at like the breakfast bar downstairs at the hotel.
Awesome.
They were like all over my bedroom growing up, but yeah.
Okay, that would certainly solidify anybody as a fan.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So who are some like notable players that kind of stand out in your memory, and maybe some moments watching the games? Were there some like highlight reels that really pop out in your mind connected to specific players throughout Oilers history?
Oh boy. I think back then I was a fan of like Ales Hemsky.
Okay.
back in '06 there. I obviously am a McDavid and Draisaitl fan, as everybody is, but I did actually really, really love Calder Yamamoto when he was here, and not because it was just so fun to see someone who was, Asian, but I liked his style of play, and he was kind of a smaller player like myself, so I thought that was kind of fun to watch. I remember way back as a kid as well, I liked Sean Horkoff, like those guys in that era, but I think now as a fan, right now, I really, and this season, I'm liking Jeff Skinner and Connor Brown.
Okay.
Yeah. Not
Cool.
always. Obviously, I do, like I said, love McDavid, Draisaitl, and those are the jerseys that I own. But
Yeah.
it's fun to see past them and go down the rest
Oh,
of the
of
roster.
course. Of course. Yeah. Like, for me as a Habs fan, everybody, we're all talking about the Suzuki and Cole Caulfield pairing, but it is fun to dive a little bit deeper into the team and talk about some of the other players. I am, of course, on a Suzuki kick, especially since starting the podcast.
Yes.
He is the unofficial captain of the podcast, but
He's so good. I love watching him play.
Yes, he is a whole lot of fun to watch play. But so going back to the Oilers a little bit, so there have been two Asian players on the Oilers in throughout their history. You mentioned Calder Yamamoto, and I know I say that very, very like Japanese, Yamamoto, just like anglicize it. And Jujhar Khaira, who both played for the Oilers. Did you watch Khaira play at all? Did you get a chance to see?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did. I have seen him play. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so they're in the finals. What are your feelings about the Oilers in the finals this time around? Maybe if you can put yourself back a couple weeks in that mindset of we're going to the finals again. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Especially like, since you were just in the finals last season. What were some thoughts as we entered the finals this year?
I really did feel like this year, and I still do feel like it is different. I think just the way we came through, like obviously our first two games against LA were brutal, but then kind of found ourselves as a team again. So that felt nice. And then I feel like from then on, I never really had a doubt that we were going to lose anything.
Okay.
Obviously now, like it's the two best teams in the league. So whatever happens. But I still feel like with their backs against the wall, they can hopefully do it. But I was just obviously so excited that we're back. But like I said, I kind of really didn't have a doubt that we would be back. And I was just feeling so confident in them. So I'm hoping they pull it out.
Yeah. So I don't know when I'm going to be publishing this episode, but hopefully if I can get this out before Game 6, we can... we can rally, and I say we. I'm not a fan, but like I'm pulling for Edmonton at this point. I don't really have. I guess part of it too is that Florida being the division, I just don't want to see. I don't. With the exception of the Devils, because the organization does a lot of sponsorships for stuff that I'm involved in here. I don't have a soft spot for any team in the East. I like all Eastern teams are anathema to me, but so yeah, no love for Florida coming from me.
Love that.
So
Plus,
by
who doesn't
default,
want to see McDavid hoist the cup.
right? I mean, it's McDavid.
He deserves it.
Exactly. If there's anybody in the league who deserves to hoist the cup, it's Connor McDavid. So I'm if I don't like. I've got a bunch of Calgary fan friends, so I do have a little tougher time, saying I'm rooting for the Oilers. But I will say I'm rooting for McDavid and Draisaitl. That's where my rooting interests are.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
All right. Well, this has been a little fan report for the Asians in Hockey podcast. Thank you so much, Alana, for popping in and hanging out with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me back again. And yeah, go Oilers. We gotta cheer them on here.
Yep, absolutely. A huge thanks to Alana for hanging out with us today. Oh, by the way, if you're a hockey fan of Asian descent, I'd love to hear from you. Just shoot me a message with a voice note telling me about your love for your favorite hockey team and some of your experience as an Asian hockey fan, and I just might feature it here on the show. More to come right after this.
host the podcast Asians in Baseball alongside Naomi Ko and Scott Okamoto. Asians in Baseball is exactly what it sounds like, a podcast about the Asian and Asian Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Americans in Major League Baseball. Every week, we break down the highlights of what's going on with Asians in baseball and then take a deeper dive into the Asian and Asian Americans past and present who have shaped baseball as it is today. Whether you're Kim Eng's #1 fan or you've never even heard of Hideo Nomo, we've got something for everyone, especially for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Maybe too much for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Listen to Asians in Baseball wherever you get podcasts, part of the Potluck Podcast Collective.
He isn't just one of the NHL's most intelligent two-way centers. He's the face of a new era for the Montreal Canadiens. In a league where leadership is everything, Nick Suzuki has already carved out his place in history as the Habs' newest and youngest ever captain, and the first Asian captain in the franchise's storied history. He's also only the second NHL captain of Japanese descent, following the legendary Paul Kariya. So, how did this quietly confident kid from London, Ontario become a symbol of hockey's evolving face? Today, we break down the life, career, and legacy in the making of Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki was born on August 10, 1999, in London, Ontario. He grew up in a close-knit, sports-loving family. His Japanese-Canadian heritage comes through his father's side, while his mother is of Scottish descent. That cultural blend helped shape his values early on: modesty, diligence, and respect. His path to the NHL wasn't without its challenges. As a toddler, Suzuki suffered from serious health issues, including repeated ear infections, pneumonia, and HFMD. But once he laced up the skates at the age of 3, something clicked. He soon joined the London Junior Knights, where he formed a lifelong friendship with future NHLer Isaac Ratcliffe. The duo were electric on the ice, frequently finishing each other's passes and sentences. By the time he was 15, Suzuki was dominating the minor hockey scene, putting up 68 points in 31 games during the 2014-15 season and earning the Alliance Hockey Player of the Year award. One of his youth coaches said of Nick that he always had a maturity beyond his years. He saw plays unfolding before they happened. Suzuki's next stop was the Ontario Hockey League, after being selected 14th overall by the Owen Sound Attack in the 2015 OHL Priority Draft. His rookie season saw him net 20 goals, a franchise first for a 16-year-old rookie since 2008. The next year, he blew the doors off the league with 45 goals and 96 points, earning CHL Sportsman of the Year and the William Hanley Trophy. Over the course of 3 seasons with Owen Sound, he developed into one of the most cerebral forwards in Canadian junior hockey. By 2018, he had earned the A as alternate captain and was recognized for not just his offensive skills, but his elite hockey IQ. He was known for his patience with the puck, his ability to make plays in tight spaces, and his disciplined, respectful style of play, rare traits in such a young offensive talent. Suzuki was selected 13th overall by the Vegas Golden Knights in the 2017 NHL Draft, but before he could even wear the jersey in a pro game, he was packaged in a blockbuster trade. On September 10th, 2018, Vegas traded Suzuki, Tomas Tatar, and a second-round pick to Montreal in exchange for then-captain Max Pacioretty. It was a pivotal moment in both Suzuki's career and in Canadiens' history. Few realized then that the quiet, efficient junior player would soon become the heartbeat of the organization. But first, he returned to the OHL for one final campaign, this time finishing the season with the Guelph Storm. Suzuki not only led the team in scoring, but helped power them to an OHL title with 42 points in 24 playoff games. He was awarded the Wayne Gretzky 99 award as playoff MVP. Suzuki's OHL legacy was sealed: 328 points in 251 games, multiple awards, and a reputation for leadership and discipline. Suzuki cracked Montreal's opening night lineup in October 2019. As a rookie, he played 71 games, scoring 13 goals and 28 assists for 41 points. He was a steady presence on both the power play and the penalty kill, earning all-rookie team honors. The 2020-21 season solidified his reputation. In 56 games, he again posted 41 points and led the Canadiens in scoring during their Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup final. He was everywhere, blocking shots, winning faceoffs, creating space for line mates. He logged top minutes as a sophomore, leading many to wonder how a player so young could play with such poise. On September 12, 2022, Nick Suzuki made history. At just age 23, he was named captain of the Montreal Canadiens, the youngest in team history and the first player of Asian descent to wear the C for the Habs. He also became only the second NHL captain of Asian descent, joining Paul Kariya, a connection that resonates deeply with Suzuki and with fans from across the Asian diaspora. On a personal note, while I have always loved Nick Suzuki from the time he was drafted by Vegas until now, as a Habs fan, I was of the opinion that perhaps it was just a season too early to name him captain. But boy, was I wrong. His captaincy has been marked by maturity and consistency. Suzuki doesn't lead with bravado, he leads by example. His calm demeanor and steady performance have helped guide a young Canadiens team through the highs and lows of a rebuild. In the 2024-25 season, Suzuki hit a new career high with 89 points, just one shy of 90, 30 goals and 59 assists, while playing all 82 games and finishing with a +19 rating. He earned his third straight All-Star Game selection and crossed major milestones, his 300th NHL point on November 11th and his 400th game on December 7th. He has emerged as one of the NHL's top two-way centers, used in every situation, trusted with defending leads, killing penalties, and quarterbacking the power play. And when the pressure's on, he thrives. Suzuki has 3 career playoff game-winning goals and is known for clutch performances in overtime and elimination games. Suzuki's impact extends well beyond the rink. As a 5th generation, or Gosei, Japanese Canadian, he has become a symbol of representation in a sport long dominated by white athletes. In Japan, his captaincy made headlines. In Vancouver, Toronto, and cities across Canada with large Asian communities, young fans have started to see themselves in hockey through Suzuki. He has embraced the role with humility, choosing to lead not with flash, but with presence. And off the ice, he works with the NHLPA's Goals and Dreams program and supports the Assista Foundation, helping fund service dogs for veterans and individuals with PTSD and mental illness. Still just 25 years old, Suzuki is signed through 2030. With a young core built around him, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky, Lane Hudson, and Ivan Demidov, the Habs are positioning themselves for quite the competitive future. And Suzuki leads them. Not with theatrics, but with vision, effort, and discipline. He wins the quiet battles. He sets the tempo. He anchors the identity of one of hockey's most iconic franchises. As he said after the 2024 season,
I'm extremely proud of everyone. From where we started the season to where we are now, we've grown so much. And
that, perhaps, is the best way to understand Nick Suzuki. Always part of the process, always building, always moving forward. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Phil Yu, and I'm the host of All the Asians on Star Trek, the podcast in which I interview all the Asians on Star Trek. I'm talking to actors, writers, directors, stunt people, background extras. You know, all the Asians on Star Trek. Find out more at alltheasiansonstartrek.com. Part of the Potluck Podcast Collective. Live long and prosper.
For today's third period, I am joined by Ava Wood, who is a professional women's hockey league content creator and superfan who has become a big part of the PWHL fan community and goes by the tag 365 Hockey Girl, if I'm not mistaken. That's your tag, right? Awesome. Ava, thank you so much for joining us here on the Asians in Hockey podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. One thing to say is I feel like I didn't think when I created the name 365 Hockey Girl, I didn't think about how people would say it in real life, but I actually think it should be 365 Hockey Girl. It's actually a reference. So I got the idea from a Charlie XCX song called 365, where she says 365 Party Girl. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So 365 Hockey Girl.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good to know. So we'll mention it again at the end of our conversation, but because that's your whole thing is your content, it is 365 Hockey Girl on Instagram and TikTok, but there is an underscore in there, right? It's 365 underscore Hockey Girl on Instagram and TikTok, because I think there might be another one who's 365 Hockey Girl, but we're not going to bother with her for now. So I do have some questions for you. You have very quickly become one of the more recognizable fan voices in the PWHL community. Pretty, I would say, especially given the fact that the PWHL is only in its second season, we're now seeing some of the new voices who are rising and becoming the source for all kinds of analysis and content regarding this league. But I am curious about how you ended up being drawn to the PWHL in the first place. How has this shaped your identity as a fan?
Sure. So actually, what's pretty interesting about my story is that PWHL was my gateway into hockey. I wasn't a hockey fan from NHL. I didn't really get involved with the PHF because I really didn't know it existed. Even the Olympics, I didn't even watch women's hockey in the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? I did not watch the 2022 Olympics.
Wow. Okay.
I only got into hockey because of the PWHL.
Interesting. Okay. So, for our listeners, in various parts of the world, that could be, okay, fine. Yeah, sure. This could be your introduction to hockey. But then in a place like Canada, that's sort of surprising that your introduction to hockey is through the newest league that's only been in existence for 2 years. So I guess I'll follow up by asking, so where are you located geographically? And is that a very surprising thing for you to have only gotten into hockey through the PWHL?
I think it's surprising a little bit. So I'm originally from Michigan.
Okay, so that's it's not quite Minnesota, but that is a dense hockey community in the U.S. So that is a little bit surprising.
And that's why this podcast is important, because I think when I bring this up to people, they'll be so surprised, why weren't you into hockey? And I honestly feel like part of the issue is because hockey is a white sport.
Mm-hmm.
That is literally the issue, because people are so surprised, and I'm well, my friends weren't talking about hockey. My friends weren't playing hockey. So I was playing soccer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, and it absolutely makes sense. But interestingly enough, hockey didn't start off as a white sport. It only became a white sport over years. And of course, there are all sorts of reasons for that. I do recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a documentary called Black Ice. And it is incredibly so you're nodding as if have you seen it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
I highly, highly, highly recommend it. By the end of the podcast, or by the end of the documentary, I was in tears, actually bawling like a little baby. It was such a moving, such a powerful documentary, but gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching in so many ways. But I highly recommend it because it also talks about the history of hockey as a non-white sport, and then kind of talks about how it became such a very, very predominantly white sport. But that's good to know, that like, you know, the whiteness of the sport kind of prevents a lot of potential fans from getting into it. But here you are. So what drew you to the PWHL? How did that happen?
Yeah, so first off, I'm from Michigan. I actually live in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had been to some Kraken games, like, because that's like the thing to do here, but Kraken is really expensive.
Yeah.
So I didn't like fall in love with hockey because of the Kraken. And also when I went to Kraken games, just like based on the vibe, I think it's also because of the whiteness. Like, I don't want to keep harping on this. But I genuinely don't know if people realize like how much the sport is perceived as a white sport and how much of a turnoff that is for fans. I don't think white people realize that. I think white people know that it's white, but I don't think they understand like what that's like. And also, just to circle back to like my family not really being into hockey, like literally like last week when I posted about this podcast on Instagram and my mom replied, my mom's Asian, and she was like, Asians in hockey? She was like, I don't know how much they're going to have to talk about. She was really like, I think she doesn't even know, like you said, like there is a rich history there, but so much has been done to make this sport be perceived as a white sport.
Yeah.
And it's honestly a big turnoff to fans.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily that it's like an explicit turnoff, like you could still be into it, but when there's other alternatives, sometimes it feels easier to pick the alternatives.
No, totally understandable. And, you know, for somebody like me who grew up in very, very white spaces, and to the point where I didn't even want to be perceived as Asian. I wanted to fit in with the white kids, which is part of why I ended up drawn to hockey, which is very, very unfortunate. But now, many, many years later, with me sort of having that kind of racial awakening, I find myself now embedded in these conversations about diversity and the opening up of inclusiveness within a sport like hockey, and how can we grow and how can we draw awareness to the fact that the sport is severely lacking in diversity and has a lot of room for growth. And sure, you know, we're making some steps over time, but yeah, there's still a whole lot of room for growth and development in that area. So, kind of tacking on to that a little bit and building on that conversation a bit. You're biracially Black and Chinese. So, how have your experiences sort of shaped the way that you've been moving through this hockey fandom? You know, like you were saying, the sport is still very predominantly white. And as a new fan, I'm also curious about what that's been like for you.
Yeah. So, when I was growing up, like, I've been in a lot of different spaces, I would say. I've had I think I do have a unique perspective. That's one thing that, like, I've realized as an adult, like, maybe as a kid, you don't realize, like, if you have a unique perspective, but as an adult, you certainly can realize it. Like, for example, like, when I was growing up, I went to 2 high schools. So I went to, like, okay, this might be off topic, so you can edit it out. But it's interesting context. So I went to 2 high schools. One of them was just like a normal public school, and the other one was like the STEM school, right? And obviously those schools are segregated. Well, they're not obviously segregated. Like, they're not segregated by law or anything, but like in America, like the way that society is, they're very segregated. And I think maybe if you are white, you don't realize segregation like in your spaces. You don't know what it's like to be like the only person of color in a space. And also, because of how I look, like, I think people don't necessarily realize like that I'm Asian or that I'm Black. Like, they obviously realize I'm not white, but they don't, there's no way to know really. So I think I just have like an interesting perspective because of like how I'm perceived. And also because I have like different backgrounds. I feel like I'm just like open-minded. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm, I guess, more willing to like imagine different things or like explore different things, or not afraid to explore different things, or like have certain conversations, or like notice things, I guess.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes people don't want to talk about certain things.
Right. No, that's understandable.
Yeah. Or also, I don't know. I just feel like my background has allowed me to like be a little bit more freer, or like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's honestly a big blessing. Yeah.
True. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I just finished reading this book. It's a very academic book. So for people who don't like academic reading, it'll be a little bit of a turnoff, but it's such a fascinating book. It's called Changing on the Fly. And it's written by Dr. Courtney Cito, who basically took a look at the state of hockey in Canada, particularly the western part of Canada, so in BC, and analyzes it through the lens of South Asian Canadians. And one of the things that she brought up in her book is the fact that a lot of South Asians, when they're trying to develop in hockey, they sort of bristle at the idea of creating, say, Asian only or South Asian only hockey leagues, or hockey spaces that are devoted only to Asians or South Asians. Now that does come into existence, but they're in her research, she found that there seemed to be this recognition in some of the interviews that she conducted. There seemed to be this recognition that if you create those spaces, you're missing something. And that's at least the perspective of the South Asians that she interviewed. Now, of course, there are reasons for those spaces to exist. When minoritized people get together within their own spaces, it is to kind of create some safety from the sort of predominantly white supremacists ideals and sort of air we breathe, which is a wholly different kind of thing from creating those segregated spaces when you are the race in power. But there is an interesting kind of perspective there, that there's a recognition that from South Asians specifically in her book, that something is missing if you are creating these one race only spaces. And why would you want to have a hockey league that is only for South Asian people? At least that's, again, like I'm saying, the perspective that she was discovering in her research from the people that she was interviewing. Whereas she was pointing out that white people don't notice that, that if a space doesn't have non-white people in it, that something's missing. And they never, there's this lack of recognition that something is missing when there isn't a non-white person that is in a space. And not just in a space, but like has some sort of creative or collective power, and not just is stuck in there to become tokenized. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
I want to keep talking about it.
No, okay, sure, absolutely.
This is like my whole thing with hockey. It's like, I don't think people realize like how much better hockey is going to be. Like, there is something missing from hockey right now, to be quite honest. Right? And like, hockey's already really good, but like, think about how much better it's going to be once everybody's here.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, I don't even think like we know like how good it's going to be.
So in recent years, the NHL had this initiative that the tagline was "Hockey is for everyone," and they've kind of abandoned it recently in favor of pushing each franchise to come up with their own sort of inclusivity initiatives. And but like, that's sort of the mantra that they were pushing out: hockey is for everyone, hockey is for everyone. And while that did sort of become a little bit of a rallying cry, there was certainly this sense that that's incomplete, and maybe that's just aspirational, that hockey really isn't for everyone right now, but it could be, and we want it to be. And that's the movement that we're trying to build towards, that hockey can eventually become for everyone, by everyone. So that's the goal. And that's why, you know, spaces like yours and ours exist, so that we can, you know, make hockey for everyone. I'm curious. So what inspired you to start making content around women's hockey? Like, we were talking previously before we hit record about this. You hadn't been a content creator prior to women's hockey, and then this is what you dove in with. So what, you know, why?
Yeah. So based out in Seattle. So I was just watching PWHL on YouTube, and that's really how I fell in love with it. But obviously, like, I don't have a team here, right?
Yet.
So, well, now I'm going to have a team here. But in the first 2 years, I didn't have a team here. And shout out to Nick. That's my other friend that was living in Seattle. We both kind of really got into the PWHL. And so we could like hang out a lot and talk about things. But actually, Nick moved to New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then I was just out here in Seattle, and like I do have other friends that are into PWHL, but not like really, really, really into it. And I honestly feel like that's a pretty common situation for a lot of folks, especially in the inaugural 6 era. Like only 6 cities had teams, so I think there was a lot of virtual fans, even more than in like other sports leagues, and especially because the games were on YouTube. Because of that YouTube chat, you could tell like there was a lot of people that are really big fans of this league, but maybe they don't have somebody to talk to about it. And they're more just like online fans. Yeah. So my first video came about because I don't think my first video was very good, but it was kind of like natural. Like I really just wanted to share with my friends to tell them like what the PWHL was, because I was trying to get them like into it. And so my first video was like how the PWHL was created, which looking back, I don't know if that's my best video, but like just trying to explain to them like, okay, like this is how much PWHL players make, like this is the jailbreak rule, stuff like that. But it wasn't like I set out in that moment to be a content creator. Like I was just making it because I wanted to make it.
Yeah.
And then actually my second video was like a little bit more of like a John Boyce style, like, oh my gosh, like pause. Who's going to be the hero? Is it going to be Minnesota or Boston? Oh, there's going to be a buzzer beater, like that type of video.
Okay.
Because I don't even know why I was inspired to make that. Well, the first one is I'm a big John Boyce fan. So I'm a big Mariners fan.
Okay.
And he has like a really good like video series about that. And I remember thinking, I was like, somebody show John Boyce the PWHL. Somebody show him this, because like I want PWHL videos like this.
Okay.
You know, I was like, I wish this type of content existed. Like I know ECK, he's like a hockey YouTuber.
Yes.
He made some videos about the PWHL, but kind of like one-off videos. And I really like watching those type of videos, but I was like, I really, really wish this existed. Yeah. Because that's the type of content I want. So I just tried to make it. And yeah, that's how I made that video. And then from there, it was like, I think it's just the process of creating. Because once I started making them, I was like, oh, now I want to keep making more. It wasn't like I set out like, I'm going to be a PWHL content creator. It was like, no, I genuinely want to see this content. And if nobody else is going to make it, I'm going to make it. Because like, honestly, like that first season of PWHL was magical to me. Yeah. And like the storylines were so good. The games were so good, like banger after banger. And I was like, I can't believe nobody's talking about this. Like we need to be talking about this. Cause like, I was like, if I don't say this, then nobody's going to know that this happened. I mean, obviously the super fans will know, but
right.
It was kind of just my way of like participating in fandom, and it felt natural. Yeah. So that was in December.
Oh, okay. So wow, quite recent.
Yeah. Back in December. And then I created my Instagram account in January.
Okay.
Actually, created it because I was at Rough and Tumble Pub.
Oh, okay.
And I was like talking to the waitress, like, yeah, like I'm making YouTube shorts. And she was like, you should put those on Instagram. And I was like, really?
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Wow, that's a cool story.
Yeah. So,
you've since December, you've garnered just over 4,000 followers on Instagram and on TikTok individually. So that kind of visibility does come with a mix of support and critique. What have been some of the challenges and joys of being a rising voice in women's hockey spaces?
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to every single person that like participates on my account, because it would not be the same without you guys. If you're listening to this, like the comments are what inspired me actually to create content. Like I started creating it just because I like had these thoughts and it was really like inside my own head. But like once people started participating, like that's when I really felt like, oh, okay, like now we're actually like, creating something here together. And so like, literally like that's how I get inspired. Like I get ideas from all the comments and then it's like a dialogue. And then that's when I feel like, you know, we're really like, that's how we're able to like move on to new ideas. Like that's how I learn. Like I've learned so much like from the comments, and like that's been my greatest joy for sure. It's just like creating a space where like I can like uplift other people's voices and like learn more. And then I myself even enjoy the PWHL that much more. So that's been the best thing. And like, honestly, sometimes like it is time consuming to go through and like read all the comments, but like that, like, that's what I try to do. Like I try to really read every comment. So that's definitely been the biggest joy. And even just like the relationships I've been able to build, like some people I haven't even met in real life, but it's been awesome. There hasn't really been any hard parts, I would say. Like the only hard part is that it's time consuming sometimes to make videos, because I have to do a real life job in my real life. And then sometimes there's like hate comments. There's a lot of hate comments.
Yeah.
But like those aren't real comments, you know what I'm saying? Like those are just like men that are like, we hate women's hockey. And it's like, okay, well, like I can't engage with that, right?
Right.
But then that just like motivates me more, because I'm like, there's really people out here that really, really, really hate women's hockey. And so I'm like, you know what? Honestly, the haters inspire me. So that has been a little traumatizing sometimes, but then I realized I was like, I need to just turn off the comments, which sucks, because then it's like, I wish that real people could comment on this, but unfortunately they ruined it. So now I have to turn off the comments.
Yeah, that does suck.
I
am curious, like maybe, you know, talking a little bit more big picture, and thinking about from your perspective as a fan who is Black, Chinese, what do you think are some important steps that the PWHL specifically, hockey in general, but I think I want to focus on the PWHL maybe a little bit for this question. What are some of the most important steps from your perspective that the league can take to make itself, the sport, etc., more inclusive for BIPOC fans?
Yeah, so I think there's, first of all, if I knew the answer to this question, I knew the full answer, then we would be in a much better place. But I know part of the answer. I think it's really hard, right? The first one, obviously, is DEI. Like, again, that seems obvious, but it's like, it's not necessarily obvious. And as somebody who has benefited from DEI, I feel like I know the most about like what it actually is and like how helpful it is. So basically, like, this goes to like the players, like growing the sport for the players and also hiring within the PWHL. So just like making sure, like, I think if you look at PWHL leadership right now, it's obviously very white, which makes sense because hockey's very white.
Yeah.
But they're a new organization, right? So they do have an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand like talent pool might be limited, but I don't know. I think it's something that the PWHL should be considering, and I'm sure like that they are considering it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of diversity in PWHL, like from a gender perspective, but maybe
Mhm.
not from like a racial perspective. So just
right.
making sure to do that. And I know that they have hired like Soraya Tinker and stuff, but it's like, there can't just be one person.
Right.
That's not really fair.
Right.
So
And even speaking of Soraya Tinker, who is but one of my idols, and she also used to play for the Riveters, which was my NWHL team of choice, and I was super involved with that team. And but Soraya Tinker took a lot of fire, which is also part of the reason why she's my idol. But she took a lot of fire during the NWHL era, and tons of props, kudos to her for the career that she's built. On top of that, those were some pretty intense and difficult circumstances that she came through. But again, like you were saying, she can't be the only one. So yeah, the hope then is to build on top of that, to elevate voices like hers, and to find others out there who are speaking up like Tinker and others. So that's good. What about fan communities? Do you see anything maybe in the fan community that could be done at perhaps a grassroots level, or perhaps amongst PWHL fans?
yeah, I think what will be interesting is to see more like type of fan communities spring up, like even like you're doing with this podcast. So like maybe different fan communities, or finding ways for like PWHL organizations to engage like with local communities, or engaging in meaningful ways with local communities.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think it's pretty popular now for like sports teams to have like Asian History Month things, but it's like, I feel like, sorry, not to keep talking about white people, but
no, that's fine.
I think for white people, they're like, oh, we have 1 month and now we're going to be like, yay, we love Asian people. And then now it's done. And it's like, well, Asian people are Asian the whole year.
Yeah, right.
So it doesn't have to, you don't have to wait for the 1 month.
Right.
Like, how can we do it year round? So it's not just like a one-off thing.
Yeah, elevating those stories and those voices, and what's sort of unfortunate is I had mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast Akane Shiga, who was like the only Japanese born player, but the only player of Asian descent in the PWHL who wasn't from Canada.
Oh yeah.
And then they did it during that first season. Leah Loom was playing in Montreal. I've lost track of her. The last I heard is she went back to China to go play in the Chinese league, but I didn't see any stats for her. But in any case, I do feel a little bit bummed that I haven't been able to talk about the PWHL players, because there aren't any players of Asian descent currently in the PWHL. I would love to get into the league more, and maybe in a future season we'll just create like a segment just to talk about PWHL stuff, regardless of the race of the players. But we'll see how things play out. Hopefully somebody will show up, in the draft or something. So
yeah, I think Nicole Gosling in the draft.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, I feel like it's one of those things, right? Like, so much of the talk about PWHL is like, if you can see it, you can be it, in terms of like inspiring young girls. And it's like, well, white girls can see it.
Right.
Right. And I think that like, because I don't know, it sounds like I'm just harping on the league. Like, I love the league, but I don't know. I know it can be hard for the league sometimes. Like, for us to say, oh, we want like Asian representation. It's like, well, the Asian representation isn't there right now. So what do you do? Right? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And then, well, that comes back to what I was saying about like DEI in terms of like growing the game. Like, well, how can we engage young folks in the pipeline, how can we give them the tools or like the community or networking so they can like make their way through the pipeline? I don't know. I don't play hockey. So, but it's probably some combination of DEI and like, I don't really know.
Yeah. And like the grassroots efforts of various organizations. I know, one that I coach for here in New Jersey, there is a population of Asian kids who are coming up through our programs, and continuing to introduce the sport in those communities that traditionally may not have been involved in hockey. So there's all sorts of opportunities for growth and development in the league. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, one more thing about the fan community. So when I first started making content, it wasn't like, obviously I know I'm not white, but that wasn't where I was coming from when I started making content, right?
Right.
But as I kind of got into it, I started like watching more other hockey content creators. And that was when I realized, I was like, well, most of these other hockey content creators are men and they're white. That's when I realized, I was like, okay, maybe I do have a unique perspective to share.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm just being me, to be honest. But I still feel like I do have a unique perspective, and I think people can kind of relate to me, and it can be nice for them to like see somebody who's not white, like enjoying something, because it changes the perception of like, oh, this isn't for me.
No, 100%. Absolutely. And that's why people like you are so needed in these spaces. So let's talk about your content then a little bit. You blend humor, analysis, passion, excitement. What role do you think storytelling like yours plays in growing the game and making it more accessible?
It plays a huge role. So storytelling is like how I fall in love with sports. Like, I like watching sports, but once I know more about like the different characters, once I become invested, that's when I really am like, oh, I'm obsessed. And then I feel like humor plays a big role too. And then just like being a fan, like a lot of being a fan isn't necessarily like being rational. A lot of being a fan is about emotions.
Yep.
And like, I think there are quite a few like folks covering the PWHL that are a little bit more rational. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe they know more about hockey, right? But it's like, I think just like coming from the fan perspective, like that's fun. It's so I think storytelling plays a huge role. But in women's sports, sometimes it feels a bit like the stories are a little bit surface level or maybe not authentic. So for example, like just in general, like media coverage can be lacking.
Okay.
So I think that's why it's important. It feels extra important to try to like tell our own stories and like create authentic narratives and like,
Yeah. Okay. Quick follow-up. What are some of your favorite storylines that have popped up over the first 2 seasons of the PWHL?
Oh, that's so hard. Well, one sad storyline is that Montreal can't make it through the playoffs.
Yeah. That's a tough one for my wife. I haven't declared a loyalty yet. But I don't like not seeing them go on. Like, I don't like getting into the late rounds and MPP is nowhere to be found, Like this doesn't jive.
Yeah, that's becoming a storyline. Minnesota versus everyone is becoming a storyline. Like I've been saying on my channel that they're the Thanos of the league, and everybody's like,
I did see that video. Yeah.
And everybody's like, don't say that they're evil, but I'm like, okay, I just see things taking shape, Like they're so good, and that's what makes them a perfect villain.
Yes. I would agree to an extent. I think there's also a little bit of some carryover from the history of women's hockey in Minnesota, and the Whitecaps being who they were. They were such like they're a little bit of an underdog, but also like simultaneously an underdog and a powerhouse, because they showed up to the NWHL late in its existence, and they didn't quite have all the resources that some of the other power, like Boston and Buffalo, had, but they still they dethroned some of the queens there. So so the Whitecaps, there's definitely a soft spot in the women's hockey world for the Minnesota team, which is probably why people might have bristled at your commentary of the Frost as the villains, but
yeah. I think it's funny. Like, I don't know. Like I said, like I'm a fan, so I think and that's part of like why I do what I do, right? It's like it's to make people feel emotions. Like it's all love at the end of the day, but it's like the fact that people are bristling. It's like, it's we're sports fans.
Of
you know
course,
what I'm saying?
Of course.
And I feel like for women's sports, like I think it's a gendered thing too, where it's like, oh, we all have to be friends, and it's like, well, we all are friends, but we can also like have opinions about sports and like make each other a little mad too.
Exactly. I don't know if you're in the women's hockey Discord server, but there's some great chats in there. It's been in existence for a while. I hop in and out from time to time. I was much more active during the NWHL PHF era, but there's some fun narratives in there, because there's a lot of Hillary Knight hate in the in that Discord server, which is always funny to watch, because I do think that she can be overhyped from time to time, but I'm not really in a camp when it comes to Hillary Knight. But I do like to poke the bear sometimes. Like if somebody's just like, all they talk about is Hillary Knight, I'm like, is this a drinking game now? Watching the game, oh, Hillary Knight did this. It's not even a Boston game, and they're talking about Hillary Knight. Drink. Yeah. But I totally agree. Being a fan is an irrational role to take on, but it can be so much fun. So I'm curious, with the recent announcement of the PWHL expansion teams in Seattle and Vancouver, what are you hoping to see as the league grows, especially as it waltzes into your backyard? And then, are you going to declare loyalty, or are you going to just keep on cheering for all the teams?
Oh, well, one thing I'm really excited about with Seattle is that, well, I love Seattle. I think that women's sports in Seattle are really treated as like first-class citizens, which is really important.
Yeah.
Like, I think for a long time, women's sports are really seen as like second to men's sports. And I really hate that.
Yeah.
And even some women's sports fans, I feel like some people will watch women's sports and be like, oh yeah, this is good for women, And it's like, no, women's sports are good as sports.
Right.
And like, so in Seattle, like Seattle Storm plays at Climate Pledge Arena, which is where PWHL Seattle will play, and Seattle Reign, which is our NWSL team, plays over at Lumen Field. So like, even just having those women's sports be in the city, visible at like the same locations where the men's sports play, like that really puts them like in that top tier, if that makes sense. Like, it feels more like they're respected. And so I'm just really excited that like PWHL is coming to Seattle, and that PWHL Seattle will be like respected as like, this is the premier like women's sports team. So I'm just really excited for that respect. What else? I think Seattle Kraken is a great organization. Like, I'm not really an NHL fan, to be honest. I'm sorry. Like, I actually did go to a Habs game. It was fun.
Okay.
And I mean, I like it in passing. And I think like a lot of the things people don't like about the NHL has to do with like the inclusivity and stuff. But as far as NHL franchises go, I think Kraken is definitely one of the better ones. I think Kraken's done a really great job with all that.
I agree.
So I'm excited to see that hopefully that'll carry over into the PWHL. And like, I'm really excited to see like how those two franchises can work together. And I'm just like really excited for Seattle. Like, I'm genuinely so excited for people in Seattle. I'm excited for the players. What I'm really hoping for down the road is PWHL players get paid more.
Yes. Yes.
That's
absolutely.
The main thing. And I hope that, like, obviously there are going to be challenges that come with expansion. There's going to be challenges that come with growing the league. So I hope that everything goes well. But yeah, I'm just really excited.
Cool. As are we all. I love seeing the growth of women's hockey, and I'm excited for that as well. So finally, if somebody new to women's hockey stumbles across your content and wants to dive in, what's something that you would tell them? What's your pitch for why they should get into the PWHL or why it matters?
Yeah, so I think all you have to do to get into PWHL is to watch a PWHL game. Like, you don't really need me to tell you anything, because I think, honestly, like a lot of times women's sports really has to justify itself. Like, oh, you should support women's sports. And it's like, well, it's not like I'm supporting it. I'm enjoying it.
Right.
You know, it's kind of treated like a charity case. Like, oh, you should just support it because it's good to support women. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's good to support women, but if you just watch it, I think you'll know pretty fast if you're enjoying it or not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's just like being open to it, you know, give it a chance and you'll probably really like it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Ava, thank you so much. This conversation has been a blast. I do have before we wrap up, I do want to re-mention your tag. So you can be found on Instagram, TikTok, and still on YouTube Shorts as well, right? Cool.
Yeah.
And your tag is 365_hockeygirl.
Correct.
Cool. Ava, thank you again for hanging out with us today. This has been a blast.
Thank you for having me. I have so many more things to say, but
okay.
So
well,
if you ever want to do this again, let me know.
There'll be a part 2 then. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Okay, that does it for the first season of the Asians in Hockey podcast. I'll still be bringing you some content this off-season, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank you so much for listening. Asians in Hockey is a part of the Potluck Podcast Collective and is hosted and produced by Nate Nakow. Contributing producers are Chad Soon and Chris Wu. Original music by Scott Okamoto. If you like what you heard, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share this podcast with your friends. To keep up with us on socials, follow us on Instagram and Threads at Asians in Hockey and on Blue Sky at asiansinhockey.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/AsiansInHockey. And please feel free to shoot me an email at asiansinhockey@gmail.com. See you next season on the Asians in Hockey podcast.